call this council meeting to order at 6 p.m. I want to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the land on which we are meeting is the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. As a council and a municipality, we will continue to work on moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. I'll ask for a motion for the adoption of the minutes, please.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held at City Hall on January 8th, 2024 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Doyle, seconded by Councillor Massey. All those in favor? And that's carried. We don't have any delegations this evening or public hearings. We'll just move into Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Worship. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee has no report.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development Committee, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing to report at this point in the agenda.
Thank you. Community Services Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Community Services Committee has nothing to report at this point in the meeting.
Thank you. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Transportation Committee has nothing to report.
Public Safety Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Public Safety Committee has nothing to report tonight.
Thank you. We have no deferred business. We'll move right into new business. We have our December building reports from City Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing to say. I'm kidding. Again, I know I sound like a broken record when I say this, but one of the things that do get me the most excited is when I do see the permits, and I fear of repeating myself, Madam Mayor, that to really see where we're at with the permits, even compared to last year, and if you compare it over the last 4 or 5 years, it's really just the proof of where economically the city is. A couple of things I do want to point out. Year over year, the permits are relatively stable, which is really good to see, but the dollar value is up significantly. And for council's information, of course, majority of that is related to the actual hospital itself. One thing I did want to point out, again, just so that we're on the same page with it, is that you will see under commercial that the dollar value for repair is significantly higher. So that can only lead me to believe that you're looking at a lot of our commercial partners, business owners that are investing back into their businesses. And I really think that's a good sign from an economic development perspective, which I know our economic development officer will probably speak to later on as well. So with that said, permits were 267 compared to 280 last year, but significantly 66 million last year compared to 124 million this year. So even when you subtract the hospital of 73 million out of it, it still leaves some significant growth within our community. If there's no questions, that's the end of my report.
Any questions? Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Our next item of new business is our annual request for service database report. That's our Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is from Transportation Committee, Administration Department, the annual request for service database report for information only. So concerns and requests for service are entered into the CityWorks database and submitted to the appropriate department, dispatched for action, and then completed and closed. Should there be a subsequent calls regarding reported complaints or concerns, this system allows all staff to see if a problem has already been reported, if it can be resolved, what stage it is at, and when completion can be expected. 2,741 calls were logged in 2023, and as summarized in the following table, 2022 data is provided for comparison. So there's several requests that were received in 2023. Notable ones were animal on the loose. There was 146 this year compared to, or last year, sorry, 2023, compared to 145 the year before. Clogged drain for frozen drain was 76. Last year was 78. And dead animal, 21, 15 from the year before. Some of the other ones were a foot elevation check. There was none this year versus 12 the year before. Garbage not picked up was 58, 48 in 2022. Grass cutting complaints by parks, four in 2023 and 6 in 2022. Most notable one was a grass cutting complaint bylaw. There was 401 reports versus 290 from 2022. Another thing that was up was illegally parked vehicles. It was 282 last year compared to 180 the year before. Another one, loitering cleanup bylaw enforcement, 39 from 2023 and 6 from 2022. And I'll say what was down was no water service, 6 complaints reported from 2023 and 37 from the year before. Noisy animal complaints were almost the same, 19 from last year and 18 compared to the year before. Pet impounded, there was 121 reports versus 95 from the year before. Potholes, 101 last year compared to 79 the year before. And it goes on to there's quite a few entries here. They're attached to the report is attached so you can look at it yourself. I'm just going over some significant ones. Snow removal miscellaneous, 35 from last year versus 120 the year before. Unsightly property, there was 270 reports versus 186 the year before. And that was about it that I can actually really point out as significant. So as an alternative to phoning in service requests, they can be entered into using the city's app. User submissions are submitted electronically to the appropriate department, who will investigate the concern. Issues such as potholes, animals running at large, an illegally parked vehicle, or downed tree can easily be reported, and requests for services such as snow removal or street sanding can easily be made from a smartphone or a computer. Of the 2,741 service requests received in 2023, 266 were submitted by using the city's app, which is a substantial increase from the past years. This is a very positive trend, and as using the app streamlines the process and increases efficiencies, and that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship, and a really good report, and it shows the number, of course, of calls that are stable year over year, but of course in different categories. But I guess the only question I have is, and it is extremely positive, that we did have a number of increases in using the city's app. It still is only 10% of the total. I guess my question would be to administration is that how are the other calls recorded? Are they recorded to the individual departments, bylaw, operations? And if somebody does call, and a second follow-up to that, Madam Mayor, is that if there is a phone call that takes place, are they encouraged to go to the app and to do it? The reason I like the app, again, just real quick context, is because it logs everything and it's got a whole process that can follow and it can't be forgotten, right? So I guess question number one, is where do these calls go to, and how do we keep those, and do they refer back to the app?
And just one clarification on that too. When we're saying app, like often we just think of the app on our phone, but it could be referring to filling it out on the website too, is meaning the app, right? All in one, not, if that makes sense. Yeah. Mr. Pito?
Through your worship to Councillor Meyer, so when calls come in, they are logged into the system, so the staff will immediately take the information, put it in the system, and that's really how it's mainly tasked out to administration to follow up on. So can things be lost? I think human nature, that potentially, but also information can be entered in the app or web-based portal incorrectly. So we are getting better. I think staff are becoming more comfortable with the system, logging and following up within the system, including our contractors. We'll have our bylaw report later, and a number of these are bylaw items. Those are put in by our contractor. So your second question are, when people call in, are they encouraged to use the web-based portal or app? I'm not aware, actually, if that is the case, but it's definitely something we could talk to administration about, saying, are you aware that this service is available? It is extremely streamlined, and you're not. I think everyone gets frustrated when they have to leave a voicemail, or they get I wouldn't get a busy signal, but they'd get a voicemail and have to leave a message. Then administration has to follow up. When you can do that direct entry, it goes right into the system and right to the appropriate department, so they can act very promptly on your concerns. So it's good feedback, and I will definitely check up with administration and the departments that do this to see if they are encouraging people who call and make complaints to use the app or web-based portal.
Good. Thank you so much for that. And just the one quick comment, I've actually used the app myself and got a phone call back from the appropriate department. The issue was dealt with and almost in an immediate sense. So I really encourage the app. I think you get faster service. It's logged. It's all there as well. So that was my only comment on that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question for administration. It's a lot of calls and a lot of people looking for help. And I know as councillors, we also get some of this and refer to admin to help deal with the problem. But I'm just curious, I'm more interested in where you can't do something about a problem. So someone calls and it either is not in budget, or it's something that we just can't do as a policy. What's the form of communication goes back to the citizen? Is it just a phone call explaining it, or something on the, just trying to get it? It's a lot of things you have to get back to people on, and is it difficulty keeping up? I'm interested in the ones that we can't do much for on an issue, as opposed to, and I know you resolve many of these issues, because I've sent some to administration and they are resolved. But what about the ones we can't? What's the type of communication back to people?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Massey, yeah, you're correct. Not everyone's aware of what a municipality does and does not, or they may have a higher expectation of what service could be delivered at than we can. So I think staff often do their best to refer them to the either appropriate level of government. You know, I see that a lot at City Hall. People come in for different services that are definitely provincial or federal services. An example, for a recent snow clearing, there was someone who had the end of their driveway cleared at a standard that they didn't deem acceptable, but definitely was acceptable from our standards. When that happens, that gets referred to a manager responsible in the department, and they follow up with that individual and explain where we're at in terms of bringing in services. Staff try to be helpful. We definitely will work to make sure we connect them with the services or the answers they can, even if they're not within the city. I hear it every day at the front desk here at the finance department and administration. They're often looking up numbers for provincial directories and connecting people with the right people. But if it doesn't fit into the exact, round peg, round hole, administration will usually get referred up to a supervisory level, and we do our best to help them out.
Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Mr. Pito. That's good to hear. So the ones we can't help, at least a manager or somebody tries to, give them the information, or at least explain why we can't, so that, if we get a call as councillors, the first thing we say is, have you talked to administration? Yes, this is what they told us. So I'm pleased to hear that, but I just hope the volumes are enough that you can handle it with your staff, because I think communication back to our residents on why we can't do something is just as important as helping someone with an issue. So.
Thank you. From this report, I think too, like often it's things that we're reporting that are maybe an issue, but I just think it's a nice number to see that there are 166 people using shelter bookings for Island Park and using our city-owned resources. So in a short, sometimes feels too short of summer season, it's nice to see that that's happening. I think we should add a line too that is just for, maybe we could pass the information on to Manitoba Hydro for people who report the purple lights that we still have in our city. Thank you. Okay. We'll move into new business. It is our quarterly report time, so we'll go City Planning and Economic Development. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship, and really good on the heels of a really incredible building report for the RM and the city of Portage combined. So, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our Director of Economic Development, Ms. Eva Leary, who's got the report for PRED, or for Portage Regional Economic Development.
Good evening, Council and members of the public and administration. I'm very excited to be here again for quarter 4 of another successful year in our region. So just to reiterate, PRED is a not-for-profit organisation that is an entity for economic development between the city and the RM of Portage la Prairie. In 2023, we were successful in attaining over $165,000 of grants, which we had put to use for strategic planning, community profiles, and interactive data tools, which we will get to throughout the report. Community engagement, PRED is intertwined and sits on a variety of committees across the community and across the province to provide an economic development lens. And then some committees that PRED is intertwined with and meets frequently and acts as advisory committees is the Portage Economic Response Team, the Portage Regional Tourism Committee, the Portage Industrial Stakeholders Group, and the Portage Regional Investment Team. We've been very focused on investment attraction in the last 4 years, but this year in 2024, we're really going to take a lens on business retention and expansion. So we kicked off having some business retention and expansion surveys in December to identify the pulse in our business community. So we had met with over 30 businesses in 2023 in December, and we hope to continue that as a program in 2024. Just a little bit about our services. Our strategic plan is being launched to the public on February 7th. So really what has taken place is PRED had hired EDCD consultant to develop a comprehensive 10-year strategy on where we're going for economic development in our region. In October, we hosted a full-day workshop. We engaged over 50 stakeholders that week. And then we had over 100 responses to our survey. And then finally in December, we did the business retention expansion meetings. So next steps, the PRED board is reviewing the strategic plan and the tactical plan, and then it will be presented to the public in February and then brought for formal adoption and resolution by the region of Portage la Prairie, so the city and the RM Council. The Portage Economic Response Team is the boots on the ground economic development team, and they are working on the strategic plan and the new website, which is being launched next week. We continue to focus our efforts on investment attraction and providing a concierge service to ensure that economic development is streamlined in our region. And on the 24th of January, on Wednesday, we'll be launching our new site selection tool. So it's a regional land inventory where commercial and industrial properties will be focused. They can do 3D renderings. They can have the development plans and the zoning bylaws all in one area. And then it's a streamlined approach for our investors and site selectors. One service that I'd like to highlight to council and to the community is that PRED is actively doing more data research on providing economic indicators. So if you do know a business or an investor or even a not-for-profit organization looking for data and projected growth in our region, such on maybe businesses or population median incomes, PRED has a wide variety and suite of interactive tools on our website and we'd be more than happy to help. And that is my report for economic development.
Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. And I think it's important to certainly let our citizens know that the growth that we've seen and that we've witnessed over the last number of years isn't by accident. It's by a very well thought out design with an incredible economic development combined with an incredible planning district. The synergies that we have, not only regionally, but within our city as well, combined, are certainly why I strongly believe you're seeing some of the economic growth and why I'm really excited about what you're going to see coming up in the future. So it's through efforts like this and some of the stuff that once we completely fulfill the mandate of PRED and get the rest of the reports done, you're certainly going to see an awful lot more. With that said, the other portion that comes out of PRED was an organization dedicated specifically to tourism, which falls under PRED's portfolio as well. And we have now, for the first time, broken out a tourism committee report. And I'm going to get back to our Economic Development Officer, Eva Leary, to discuss that.
Thank you. And going forward in the next quarterly report, our tourism coordinator, Kelly Varley, will be presenting these reports. I'm just stepping in, so hopefully I do a good enough job for her as well. So the PRTC committee was established in 2020 and consists of a variety of regional stakeholders. So really our mandate is to promote the Portage la Prairie region as a premier destination. The biggest project that's after happening in the last quarter is the skating on the Crescent Lights. So super excited to support a tourism asset in our community. And then the tourism impact assessment, it's a very unique model and impact assessment for Portage la Prairie. So it identifies the economic impact of tourism as an industry in this region. So on the 21st of February, we'll be having a very special soiree. Anybody can come and attend. And we will have Travel Manitoba and our consultants identify what those economic impacts are, and having a look at some of the numbers. We're very excited about that and to continue the effort in our region. Our new 2024 visitor guides are just in the finalization sign of design and should be hitting the printers in the next couple of weeks. We have a very heavy emphasis on winter tourism, and we have a extensive Travel Manitoba partnership as well for marketing. And just looking at the goals in a glance for 2024, so we really want to focus on our strategic plan and ensure it aligns with our economic impact assessment, review the brand guidelines and consider integration of more actionable items for tourists, such as Visit Portage, to match similar to the economic development brand of Invest in Portage. We'll be focusing a little bit more on sports tourism, Indigenous tourism, and then really focusing on destination management as a topic for 2024. And that is all I have for tourism.
Excellent.
Thank you, Ms. O'Leary. And I think it sums up in one word. I mean, spending majority of my life in Portage la Prairie, you get what someone referred to me once as backyard blindness. And it is so true. You don't realize what we have within our community, within our region, until you start going through a report like this through the tourism committee. Being involved in the tourism committee for the last number of years has made me really realize what we do have, whether it be a regional aspect from St. Ambrose to Delta, Fort Laurier Museum, and all, of course, the tourism spots that we have. So I just think it's important that every citizen of Portage really kind of get a chance and opportunity to see what we do have and to be able to promote that to the best strength that we possibly can. And it just extends into economic development and GDP and so on, which Ms. O'Leary's office will be launching here on February the 21st. It's some great numbers, and I encourage everybody to be there. So if there's no other further questions, that's our report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think you had me at soiree. And also the notes on the food truck wars and that in 2024, which is very exciting and has come up at a number of different tables that I've been around. So kudos to that. Okay, Community Services Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first quarterly report we have on the agenda is the youth member of council. She is not present this evening, but her report is attached for your perusal. But as a highlight, in the planning stage, it says the Meet the Councillors event was actually planned for January. That happened last week. And just like to touch on that and say kudos to everyone that was planning that event. All of council and the mayor showed up, and there was probably more student engagement than I've ever seen at one of these events. So very good job on that.
Yeah, it was a great event and had some good conversations with many students about different things. So just so everybody maybe didn't know about the space that we were in, and it's the new. It used to be called the multi-purpose room, but now it's the Student Wellness Center, and is going to be undergoing a nice renovation there, and is purposed to support students in their mental wellness and mental health, and help them be successful in their high school journey. So I think it's nice to see, and nice to see all the students involved and the staff, and also the staff who took part. I think was great too. It was great to interact with them. So great. Councillor Espy.
Next up is the fourth quarter report for the PCRC, and I see we have our acting executive director present. Would you like to present that report?
Hello, I'm Dana Geisel. I'm not the acting executive director, just to be clear. I'm just sitting in Mary's seat and keeping it warm while some of our exemplary employees are taking that role. So I have been provided a summary of the report that is in front of you. So as you can see, we've been very busy in a whole ton of areas, starting with our local immigration partnership. We welcomed a new cultural connector. We successfully completed the Planning Alternative Tomorrows with Hope initiative, looking at aligning our future plans with community aspirations here in Portage. We supported a Diwali celebration, which showcased the cultural diversity and inclusivity that we're striving for in Portage. We participated in the Chamber of Commerce Best Business Awards, presenting the outstanding contribution to the community by a newcomer award, and helped organize and attend the 2023 Small Center Immigration Conference, emphasizing cooperative efforts to enhance the immigrant experience. Our community building youth futures folks have been busy. They held Halloween events for local youth, including ghost hunting and a doggy fortune teller activity. They organized a job fair and conference in November, which was well attended. They are currently preparing for the end of their pilot project with a case study, journey map, and listening session. And they also facilitated a Know Your Rights in the Workplace workshop for the CBYF job fair. Our community facilitator has administered phase 2 of small grants, dispersing funds to various organizations and programs across Portage. They completed final reporting for the Skate Snow Park project and submitted funding applications on behalf of Portage Bear Clan. As well, they provided support, orientation, and training for our new Bear Clan coordinator and PCRC staff, and presented at the Manso Small Center Conference and assisted with various community initiatives. Our Connecting Communities group organized a DIY nature wind chime craft to encourage outdoor activities. They participated in the Holiday Avenue project and Trunk or Treat event, and had a successful parade of lights and skate with Santa and Mrs. Claus event. Wawokia engaged in a community safety and well-being plan rollout and initiated the Muskiki Tedibus program, which helps people involved in the justice system and employment and income assistance system move into the workplace. They've also actively participated in community activities and meetings, and received generous hamper donations for families in need during the holiday season. Reaching Home has housed individuals in emergency suites and assisted numerous people in finding housing over the last quarter. They participated in conferences and received a HIFIS training for federal reporting requirements, and collaborated with the Manitoba Harm Reduction Network and supported STBI testing events. Our Urban Indigenous Strategy participated in Sisters in Spirit Vigil, PUPSI gatherings, and the Gathering Conference, engaged with the National Urban Indigenous Coalition Council through working groups and Zoom calls, and sponsored an award for urban Indigenous businesses at the Chamber Business Awards. And finally, our Indigenous Seniors Resource Coordinator organized Indigenous seniors gatherings with different themes, provided snow support to seniors during the winter, helped program participants to address barriers such as affordable housing and food security, and finally offered spiritual support, filled out forms, and referred clients to appropriate support systems.
Thank you. Councillor Espy.
Thank you for that. Next on the agenda is the Heritage Committee fourth quarter report. Activities completed this quarter. The new Crescent Lake Heritage signs have been installed. The content is fresh. We hope that people enjoy them. Very positive feedback so far from the community. Activities begun this quarter. James Kostachuk and Greg Roberts have been gearing up to start on the second edition of Portage la Prairie Photographs, the book that will be a fundraiser for the Hospital Foundation, and they expect it to be published in 2025 when the new hospital opens. We welcome Lorraine Daniels, Executive Director of the National Indigenous Residential School Museum of Canada, to our committee. Lorraine brings an instrumental amount of knowledge and wisdom, not only as a longtime resident of Long Plain, but a residential school survivor. Goals for the next quarter: our committee will continue to work closely with Emma Enns McIver at Fort Lorraine Museum. She has an excellent understanding of our region's heritage needs and provides informed guidance. As well, support the Cairn for Fort Lorraine into a tourist shop. Support and work with our Indigenous community on the Indigenous Science Project, for which we received a provincial grant. Work closely with the National Residential School Museum and support each other through our journey through heritage. Provide all possible support to South Central Region Archive in St. Claude, which we have provided over 20,000 photographs that SCRA have scanned and uploaded at SCRA expense, and plan to house records, photographs, and historical documents in their future building. Greg Roberts continues to source an appropriate light for the Lundy Memorial Fountain at Island Park. This light will be funded from our book sales account. And that concludes that report.
Thank you. Just a note on that, Harold, when you talk about Lorraine Daniels, just a note of information. She was just in Belfast promoting the Indigenous Residential Museum here. So I think having her on the committee will be great. And the new chair of the committee is Councillor Porter, so that's exciting as well.
Do you mind if I add
Go ahead,
something to that?
Councillor Porter, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to thank James Kostuk, Chair of the Heritage Advisory Committee, for his longtime commitment, not only to our committee, but the establishment of the Portage Collegiate Archives, his guidance and expertise on heritage, as well as the relationship he has built with South Central Region Archive and the school division, as well as the students that he taught the value of heritage. And although James is leaving the committee, James will continue to give advice on questions and guidance on heritage related matters, as well as continue to work on a few of our heritage projects. I'd also like to thank committee member Brian Barrett, who is also leaving our committee, as well for his longtime commitment and unbelievable source of knowledge, items, and materials that give reason to preserve our heritage. And finally, Les Green, who is our longest serving newspaper writer who retired from full-time writing after a career spanning 4 decades. Les has a lifelong volunteer, and still is a lifelong volunteer and supporter of the community heritage. And he is the longest serving member of our city's Heritage Advisory Committee. So thank you very much for all your work, you guys. And Les, see you soon. I'll stop in. Thank you.
Awesome. Councillor Espy.
Next report up is the quarterly report for the Portage Parks Committee. Activities completed this quarter completed the construction of Phase 1 of Rotary Skate Park. To begin next quarter, presented to Council regarding future plans and needs for Simplot Central Park, continued fundraising for Simplot Central Park, continued planning towards development of Simplot Central Park, continued planning for sponsor signage throughout the park. And the goals for the next quarter are to plan and raise funds for signage, landscaping, lighting, and amenities around Rotary Skate Park and McCain Interactive Fountain.
Thank you. Any questions on parks? And last but not least, Councillor Espy.
And the final report is the Public Art Committee. And this report focuses around the piece of public art that is going to be installed at Simplot Central Park. Looking for a finalized budget, start date, completion date, and an engineered drawing. And that report is attached for your perusal.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Very busy community services. Thank you, Councillor SB. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to call upon Mr. Adamski from Serious Protection and Security Services to give the fourth quarter bylaw report.
Thank you. Could you just make sure your light's on there, Mr. Adamski?
We're good now. Good evening. Third quarter or fourth quarter, sorry. Fairly busy for bylaw. We had 285 calls for service, which was down from third quarter, but we were going into colder weather, not as much grass growing, which was our big issue in the third. 67 animals impounded, which was up from the third quarter at 47 and a total revenue of $28,000. Lots of cats are moving in and out of our facility right now. Kittens, pregnant cats. Just in the last 2 days, we've seen a population go from 3 to 6 down to 3 again, back up to 9 as of today. The reason, I don't know. It's getting colder, so people are calling, I can assume, is the biggest reason. Overall, our year, we had a revenue of $101,000, 197 animals impounded, and 1,588 calls for service. And just to touch on the calls for service that Councillor Massey was talking about, when we receive a call and we can't deal with it, we always pass it on. So if it's an animal abuse, we contact Winnipeg, or we put them in touch with Winnipeg for the animal protection hotline. The big one was the turkeys. We've had that for 2 years now. We just keep forwarding it on to natural resources. But we don't record those calls just because we haven't really done anything for them. So stuff like that you won't see on Councillor Porter's report just because we don't document it. But and then the geese on the crescent was a big one this fall, winter. Again, it was natural resources. So we do forward the public on to another source for help. We don't leave them just stranded and sorry, out of our hands kind of thing. So we do offer them an outlet or a service. Other than that, that is my report.
Thank you.
Third quarter.
Any questions for Mr. Adamski?
Or fourth quarter.
No questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care of the kittens.
Yeah.
Councillor Doyle, just have noticed that the RCMP won't be here to do the report. They got caught up, so.
Yeah,
you
no problem. I can try to tackle the report for them. For your information, there's a more detailed report attached, but I'll just go over the Coles notes here. A couple of ones that stood out to me. Person crimes are up this quarter compared to the same quarter last year. However, down quite significantly from last quarter as well. One that jumped out to me was impaired charges. We had 25 impaired charges in the last quarter this year versus 47 impaired charges in the same quarter the previous year. So that is a near 50% drop. So I do like seeing numbers like that. It is definitely promising. And common police activities are down slightly from the same quarter last year as well. That is all I would have to report on their report. Thank you.
And if we need more information, we could get it from Staff Sergeant Turco another day. Probably the impaired's down because we drove in that miserable night and got people home safely for Operation Red Nose. So that's great. Thank you. No questions, then we have no items of old business, so we will adjourn council at 6:40 p.m. and we will move right into committee. We'll call committee to order at 6:40 p.m. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Worship. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee has no report for committee this evening.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development Committee, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing in committee tonight, but certainly does encourage any of my colleagues around the table that are involved in any ad hoc committees of any type that relate to city planning or economic development. If there's anything you want to share, certainly feel free to do so.
I just want to maybe give a thank you out to Eve O'Leary from the Pred office. Today we had a great meeting with a number of our provincial ministers, Minister Naylor, Moses, and Bushy, as well as MLAs Morose, Cross, Malloway, and Loisel, who are all mostly from Winnipeg. But it was great to have them out here, and the Pred office did a great presentation on what's happening in our region when it comes to economic development, and you showcased us very well. We also had the opportunity to talk about some of the challenges we're having with infrastructure, wastewater, water, and wanted to get them up to speed on how we can collaborate with our provincial government and move forward in meaningful ways. So for everyone who attended, thank you for that. And Eve, thank you for putting the day together and having it run so smoothly. Thank you.
And I echo those thoughts exactly. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Community Services Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Community Services Committee has nothing to report, but I would also like to invite my council colleagues if they have anything related to the Community Services Committee.
Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just an update. On Saturday, our library board met to review the results, the first part of the consultant's report on the library, which was the survey of both our councils, the RM in the city, and our public about what they thought of the library, the services we provide. And so I have a report on that that I will, I've shared it with the mayor and the city manager for now, just to give them a heads up on what's happening there, certainly available to any of you who would like to see it. So that overall, I can give you a very preliminary that it was very positive. It's amazing how our city, how far we've moved with the library in terms of awareness, what services are offered, how people feel about it. It's a welcoming place now that people feel very comfortable there. The consultant's words were to our board where I've never seen a survey that was so positive, because usually you get a lot of negativity about things when people are surveyed. Hey, I don't like this. There was some things we need to work on, but overall it was excellent, I felt, response. The second piece, which I think will be of interest to council as well, is more of an operational financial look at our library. How do we compare with other libraries? Are we, our expenses? How are we doing in terms of programming? So that one will be more operational. And once that's done and the whole report is completed and our board has seen it, I've asked the mayor if our library director could present the report to committee and provide an overview. And I think it would be very, very helpful to council. So look for that in the future. But I'm really excited to see the preliminary report about our library, and kudos to our staff there and our director, library director. So just a quick update. I will have more information, and when Jen Kendall, our library director, comes out, I think you'll get the full picture of the strides that we've made in our community with the library. So thank you to council members that did participate in the survey, in the interview process, and hopefully we'll have more information for you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Anyone else? Okay. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing to report in committee unless somebody would like to share something in regards to Waterworks. My esteemed colleagues. Oh, well, thank you for your job well done. And we have nothing more to report.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Transportation has nothing to report. I would just like to thank the city staff and province for their quick cleanup, and what a fantastic job. I've heard nothing but positive feedback. So I just want to thank you and everybody's hard work and working together as a team. So it was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for transportation? Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll echo what Councillor Porter said. I heard a lot of positive feedback, both personally and witnessed a lot on social media about the quick cleanup between the province and their responsibilities within the city limits, and especially the city staff for the streets getting done so quickly. I do just want to ask a question to our administration with regards to responsibility for sidewalk snow clearing. What is the city responsible for, and where does the homeowner's responsibility, if any, lie?
Mr. Pito?
Through your worship to Councillor Doyle. Ms. Sadden, I just emailed you a map. Would you be able to bring that up on the screen? So the city does have a priority route system for sidewalk clearing. So the goals of that obviously is to have, I'm sure it will come up here shortly, but what you'll see is a map of all the sidewalks that are noted in orange, sidewalks that are cleared by the city, which are noted in green, and the sidewalks don't look that luscious in green. So they have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to clear certain sidewalks within the community. Thank you. The map is now up on the screen. So the orange is essentially sidewalks that the city has that are not cleared, but the green is indicating priority routes covered by our operations team, and then the trail system indicated in red is also cleared. This map will be updated with our upgrades to Saskatchewan Avenue in terms of clearing as well. So in terms of residential owners, if you are on any of those, typically more established older communities that do have frontages, you do not have a legal requirement to clear the sidewalk in front of you. That being said, I think if you walk around our community, you see that a lot of people do take that personal responsibility and are good neighbors and clear that sidewalk. That helps for more livable and accessible communities, and we are thankful to our residents. But in terms of having any type of enforcement in our bylaws to either ticket or fine in any way, we do not do that as a community.
Thank you. And just for clarification, when it comes to commercial or business, where does the responsibility lie for snow clearing on sidewalks?
Through your worship, back to Councillor Doyle, thank you for that clarification. In terms of our commercial responsibility, we do have a requirement that after the snowfall before 10 a.m., we ask our tenants in the downtown area, particular in terms of sidewalks, to clear in front of their business. I have had the question from businesses, clarification, if they have their business set back from Saskatchewan Avenue or set back from the sidewalk, perhaps their parking lot is in between the business and do they still have that responsibility? And they do also have that responsibility for their frontage. So again, a lot of good community partners, they get out, they clear the sidewalks nice and early. And so far it's been going well. If anyone has any questions about their responsibility in terms of snow clearing from our business partners, I encourage them to reach out to operations. They're happy to speak to them and clarify. I know especially with a lot of the new infrastructure in Saskatchewan Avenue, there can be confusion. We have sent out some mailers and clarifications, but we're always able to either verbally direct them or even come on site and help them understand.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Maybe just a follow-up to that, I'd be curious if any other municipalities similar to ours have any sort of fines or bylaws that residents would get for not clearing their sidewalk. I'd be curious if you could bring something like that back. Thank you. I just want to say too about transportation and the snow clearing. I think we were sort of waiting with bated breath for the snow this year after we sort of made it such a priority of council, and we definitely put some, lack of a better word, pressure on our city staff of what we wanted to see and what was a priority for us. And I just want to say that I think they stepped up to the plate. It's always daunting when people say We want to see these changes. We hope that they've seen that we've invested in those changes with, the addition of Lucy, and making sure that we as a council too are communicating to people about how it works. I think one thing that was very interesting, it was a comment that somebody said was they were asking about snow clearing, and we said, well, here's our plan. And they were, oh, there's a plan. That's all we need to know, which was great. And I think that that's something that the more we do and communicate that to citizens, I think we'll just be successful. So kudos to everybody who works so hard. We appreciate it. And I know the safety of our residents definitely appreciate it. Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. You did take the words right out of my mouth. From the Economic Chair to the Transportation Committee, just a number of conversations I've had with some of our local business owners over the last week as well, and promised that I would bring it around this table to really thank the administration for whatever work and effort they put in, especially clearing the snowbanks around the businesses, right? I know in years gone past we've had those issues. You had to scale an 8-foot, sometimes an 8-foot snowbank in order to get out of business. So from some of the business owners, they did want me to share the appreciation with our administration. I do have one question, though, for the Transportation Committee, and it's just in regards to our parking bylaw. I do know in days gone past, previous councils, when we had the parking meters, veterans' plates, they were never ever ticketed, or they were able to park for a bit. I'm just looking for some clarification on that, and how has that changed now that we don't have the parking meters, and how it relates to veteran plates?
Mr. Pito?
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Meyer, I'm almost certain that the bylaw does give provision for, our bylaw enforcement's no longer here, but it does give the provision for people with veterans' plates to be exempt from the standards. But please allow me to look into that and confirm that with council. But that is fairly confident on that provision.
And then just my follow-up comment to that is that how would the vehicle recognize that it is a veteran's plate over any other plate, if that is actually an aspect of the vehicle, and if it's not, how would that process take care of itself?
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Meyer, while the identification of the plate is automatic through the system, there is still a human element of reviewing the tickets issued. So when there is a photo of the physical plate, and the person reviewing the ticket would see that it is a veteran's plate.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Public Safety Committee. Sorry, Mr. Pito.
If I may, Your Worship, since you did discuss the snow clearing strategy, I would be missing an opportunity not to encourage everyone to look in their recently issued city guide where we talk about our snow clearing policy. So that's been delivered to properties, and you can look into it.
Thank you. Public Safety, Councillor Doyle.
Well, public safety isn't going to be as hot of a topic as transportation tonight, because public safety has nothing to report this evening, unless someone else has anything they'd like to add.
Thank you. I would add that if you read our new city guide, it's going to tell you all about the implementation of our new CSO program, which is public safety.
Well, that's excellent. Can you just let us know when they will finish being delivered?
Sure. We have Visions of Independence who've been working on delivering our city guides to all of our residential mailboxes. And I believe if you live in an apartment building in our community, if they have access, they will be stacks in the vestibules or lobbies, whatever you call them, so that everyone gets one. Also, we have it in an electronic version that you can find on our website. So we're even going to let those people who live in the RM read our city guide without getting one in their mailbox. We're very excited about it. One thing, though, is that we really want people to have a look at it, peruse it. Let us know how you feel about it. Is it useful? Do you think it's a good investment that we're doing as a council for communication? We want your feedback. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Our staff puts a lot of time and effort into this city guide, so we obviously want to make sure it's something that's beneficial to our city. So look for it this last week and this week to be in your mailbox. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. If nothing else, oh, counselor, or no, you're not a counselor. Mr. Pito.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did want to follow up with Councillor Meyer, and I can confirm that vehicles displaying veterans' license plates are exempt from tickets while parked in time-limited parking zones according to our bylaw.
Thank you very much. Is that, so, sorry, so then just to clarify, so obviously the vehicle I know we haven't named it yet. I know we got Lucy. I'm not sure what our bylaw vehicle is named, but anyways, so it'll still take the picture. It'll still issue the ticket, but then it's caught at our administration office and not forwarded to that individual. Is that my understanding?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Meyer, that's correct. The vehicle recognizes the license plate. If it has exceeded, for example, a 2-hour time zone, the ticket will pop up on the screen in the vehicle. The vehicle doesn't have a formal name besides, I'm sure people call it a lot of names sometimes, but that will come up, and then the person running the vehicle will decide whether to put forward that to, actually goes to our finance department for review. So there's 2 levels of human scrutiny if that does come up, and then it would be caught.
Thank you for that information. That answers my question perfectly.
Thank you. We will adjourn committee at 6:56 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for participating.